Incredibilis! Hello number ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and lately I've been watching a few videos about the concept of dual wielding shields, and to be specific, I watched 3 videos from 3 different separate content creators who have decided to address this rather interesting and amusing topic, and I decided why not stepping into the discussion and bring up some ideas of my own. So the 3 content creators that have already talked about this topic before me, so I think it's only right for me to mention them as they came up with the idea before I did, where of course Skallagrim, and I think most of you already watched this video, but it's rather interesting, particularly the beginning was really funny. Then Matt Easton's from Schola Gladiatora, he brought up quite a lot of interesting and intriguing ideas and concepts on this, about this unconventional idea of fighting with 2 shields, and a third one was PC Genie, and so you will find links in the description below. Now this whole idea, this whole video idea came up from the actual question, from some accurate question that were asked in the respective communities, asking the question, dual wielding shields, was it ever done? Did actual ancient warriors ever go to battle or duel wielding 2 shields? And of course the obvious answer to that was no. This was already perfectly explained in the other videos, so I won't linger on this too much. But the majority of examples that were drawn, that were given, had to do with either Viking shields, heater shields, bucklers. And since a big chunk of my content on YouTube has to do with Roman history, I decided to talk about and focusing on a dual wielding Roman Scuta. Oh, before you ask, if you're curious, yes, this is a Roman supermalis, the kind of garment that would be worn by soldiers underneath their armor. Specifically, this is a supermalis made by Fabrica Cacti to be worn underneath lorica segmentata, hence the puffy shoulders. So yes, very nice piece of kit. And no, this is not historically accurate, and Romans did not wear sweatshirts. Okay, so first let's talk about battle. Well, you see, in battle, did the Romans do it? Sort of. I mean, not exactly. You never had a soldier wielding 2 shields, no. But one thing they did is that with the formation testudo, they are increasing the number of shields protecting the unit, because you have a soldier using the shield in front of him, I've got a soldier now really near me, next to me again, protecting, and you've got someone in the back using his shield to cover my upper part, okay, from arrows and stones and rocks. So in a way, you are multiplying the number of shields protecting one soldier. It's sort of a similar way, but it's done in a much more effective way. If I had one soldier wielding 2 shields, considering Roman fighting stance, which we'll get to in a moment, the only thing I protect that it's more than a testudo is the back. You don't really need that, do you, in formation combat? So the thing that we need to keep in mind is Roman soldiers don't fight like this. As far as dueling is concerned, of course, we need to look at the zenith of Roman dueling, single combat, and that is gladiatorial combat, but we'll get there in a moment. So what is the Roman fighting stance? Well, of course, we don't know a lot about it, and I've been trying to recreate Roman legionary combat training, and I have a group now. We meet once every 10 days, 3 times a month, sometimes more, sometimes less. It depends on how busy we are, and I basically have managed to recreate a full contubernium. We do train in Latin, and I am making footage, so you will see this on the channel soon. But the idea is as far as we know, we are looking at iconography to try and understand how the Romans fought, and the way I teach the people and the way we have decided to recreate this is that we never keep the feet on one line. We always keep the feet apart from each other, slightly towards the front, knees slightly bent, and then the shield, you never hold it like this, because this will tie you down very quickly. Instead, you let it rest on your body. Then the gladius will be retracted, and this is our formation stance for combat. Now, as you can see, an imperial shield wraps around you. I'm already covered. I don't need a second shield to protect me. The only parts that are exposed are my shoulders and my helmet, which, in full armor, will be heavily covered and armored. Similar situation with a Republican shield. Now, this one is particularly big for a Republican shield, so keep in mind that some will be smaller, but I think the similar concept is possible. You can see it's covering myself completely.
Scusa, portate! Scusa, bollite! Dammi ottimo, massimo! Muove! Penso! Muove!
Okay, so that covers battle. What about dueling? What about gladiatorial combat? Well, we do know that there was a gladiator by the name of Dimakaerus, so a gladiator class, mind you, that actually used two equal objects on both hands, and that is a dual-wielding gladiator with two swords. So, did they actually have a dual-wielding gladiator dueling shields? Absolutely not, and the reason is that you don't really need to, and we know that a gladiator mostly needed to protect his left side rather than the right side, because often gladiators are represented in mosaic statues, for example, having only the left greave. They don't have a right greave. Sometimes they do, but majority of times they don't. And that already tells us about the combat stance, with the right leg in the back and the left leg in the front. So again, a second shield, considering how massive they are, wouldn't really make sense. Now, we have been focusing on the scutum, but what about smaller shields? Yes, the Romans did use small shields in gladiatorial combat. There was a class called oplomachus, which was a class basically representing, because every gladiatorial class sort of represented enemies of Rome, other populations such as the Thrax, who was, the Thracians, and the oplomachus was kind of represented at first Macedonians or Greek warriors, and therefore he had a very small round shield, although Greek warriors had massive ones, but he had a very small round shield, and he was using it with a spear. Dual wielding very small round shields wouldn't make sense, because of course the spear gives him a range advantage, and the small shield sort of compensates and gives him a little bit of protection, but not too much. And I think the reason why they chose that is because if they gave him a massive round shield, then other gladiator classes would have had problems dealing with him, because a spear and a big shield are a very good advantage in combat. And since gladiator games are indeed games, they were trying to balance up things, similarly to when they patch video games in our day and age, trying to make sure the classes are balanced. Now, a very quick side note, since I consider that you obviously are interested in martial arts, combat, fighting, ancient warriors, then would you be interested in knowing a lot of interesting information on Shaolin monks and their routine, daily routine, how they train, what they ate, what time they ate, and what time they meditate? Well, if you are interested, consider checking out my friend Salvo's channel. You better call Sal, because he recently made a video on Shaolin monks. It's a very good one, and I strongly suggest you to check it out. Link in the description below. And also consider that we are doing a collaboration together about Roman recipes, because he likes cooking, I love eating, and we decided to make a video collaboration together. We will be exploring Roman recipes. We will do it once on my channel, and then every Sunday on his channel, a different Roman recipe weekly for you. He will be making garum, he will be making loads of different recipes, so make sure to subscribe if you're interested into Roman history, also the cooking side of it. Going back to the topic at hand, we understand that the Romans never did it, and we also understand that other populations in Europe never did it, warriors. So I think that the closest population that got to the idea of using two shields in combat are indeed the Japanese samurai. But how can that be? Why would I make such a statement? We know that the Japanese are not particularly famous for the usage of shields. How can it be that it was indeed the samurai who got the closest to the idea of, to the concept of using two shields? As I have said in earlier videos, yes, samurai did use shields, though mostly they wear the tates, or stationary shields, to protect them. And yes, the pre-samurai era warriors, and I have recently made a video dedicated to Iron Age warriors or pre-samurai, also used shields in combat, and they were rectangular, they were rather big. So very different from the usual idea we have of samurai and Japanese warriors. But when I talk about using two shields, I'm not talking about wielding two shields, I'm talking about wearing two shields. Now, we're all familiar with sode, the protection for the shoulders part of the samurai armor. This, for example, is from my Tosei Gusoku set, which is a 16th century armor. But if we look at my other set, the 14th century Muromachi Jidai armor, then we have osode, massive, bigger shoulder defenses, which, if you look at them, actually look like small shields. And not really that small if you consider bucklers, they are actually bigger. So in a way, the osode is the evolution of Japanese shields that, instead of being wielded, they were worn. The reason being, it's a compromise, because the samurai is an archer, as we know, mostly, at least until the Sengoku Jidai, where towards the end of the Sengoku Jidai we know that they started using guns, so actual matchlocks. But mostly the samurai was a warrior who was wielding and operating a bow, so he needed both hands. They decided to wear very big rectangular square shoulder guards, which had basically the same purpose as shields, to protect them from arrows and missile fire. So in a way, They are not dual wielding shields, but they are dual wearing shields. A little gaming curiosity: there is a game that allows you to dual wield shields, and it's Dark Souls. And to demonstrate that, I actually booted the game myself. I love Dark Souls 2. I think you can do it in all iterations of the game. Alright, noble ones, well, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron. I'd like to remind you also that on the 30th of last month, my video documentary on Patreon came out. It's a video documentary on Date Masamune, so if you're interested, check out my Patreon page, link in the description below. Thank you very much for watching as always, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Now I need to go get some pasta. Ciao!